Welcome. Today we'll be talking to Lake Orion Police Chief Jerry Narsh. He will be talking to us about the new Michigan gun laws and how residents can get their concealed pistol license, also known as a CPL. We will also be demonstrating gun safety along with how to properly handle a weapon. Welcome, Chief Jerry Narsh. Thank you for coming with us today.
Thank you, Tiffany.
If you can tell us a little bit about your background information.
Sure. I've been with the Lake Orion Police Department for about 30 years and enjoy that affiliation very, very much. I've been the police chief for about 13 now. And during that time, have been very active with firearms instruction and training. It's been a passion of mine since I was very young. I was active with the Oakland County Sportsman's Club when I was a young boy, got started by my father, and have enjoyed the shooting sports my entire life. With the police department, I taught police firearms instruction and training, and for a time even had my own personal instruction course that I used to teach. So during that time have been very involved with firearm safety, firearms training and instruction, and still enjoy it very much.
Thank you, Chief Narsh. Now we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be discussing Michigan gun laws and how residents can go about getting their license to carry.
Enjoy farm fresh produce, baked goods, art, and more at the 2014 Lake Orion Farmers Market sponsored by Crittenden Hospital. Walk, bike, or drive to the Orion Arts Center located at 115 South Anderson Street. Parents can purchase products grown and made locally while kids take part in fun activities like horseshoes and arts and crafts. Come early and come often as vendors change from week to week as new crops come into season. The Lake Orion Farmers Market is held every Wednesday from 2 to 7 p.m. through October 22nd. For more information or to sign up as a vendor, visit downtownlakeorion.org.
Welcome back. Now before we get into the rules about getting a concealed pistols license, I would like to ask the Chief, how do you feel about allowing Michigan residents and Lake Orion residents to carry pistols?
Well, Tiffany, it's the law. It's the law of the land. It's a constitutionally protected right, and people have a right to protect themselves. Police officers can't always be around at those moments where you need to protect yourself, and that's why the Second Amendment is there. So as long as lawful citizens are obtaining lawfully that process or going through that process, then we support that. People have a right to defend themselves.
Now before we get into the guidelines and rules that are needed, let's talk a little bit about the background information and where you would go about getting your application.
The applications are created by the state of Michigan, and they can be found at your local police agency. They can also be picked up from the Oakland County or any county clerk's office. The application will then guide you on the specifics of the process, but in a nutshell, there's about a $100 fee that is going to take place for the application. And it has to be posted at the time the application is presented. It is presented to the county clerk's office after you have obtained a certificate of training and instruction to show that you've gone through the required and mandatory training, and also after you've had the fingerprint background check done. The fingerprints can be taken at either a local law enforcement agency or at the county, any Oakland or any county sheriff's office. But once that application packet is complete, it'll be presented back to the county clerk, and then within a period of time, it'll be reviewed against your background and your eligibility, and then the license would be issued.
Okay, now does the Lake Orion office, the police office, offer fingerprinting?
We do offer fingerprinting. However, many local agencies can fingerprint for the application process, but there's a fee involved. They would have to check with their local county sheriff's office to see if there's a fee involved. Many times there's not, as a part of the firearms background process. So we do provide the fingerprinting service for a small fee.
Okay, now can we get into some of the guidelines and rules?
Absolutely. Some of the rules, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that this is not a complete list of rules, to make sure that people are qualified completely and eligible. So this is a partial list, but it's enough information to, I think, get everybody going. The applicant must be 21 years of age. The applicant has resided in Michigan for at least 6 months. The applicant is a citizen or legal resident of the United States, and the applicant has successfully taken a gun safety course. The applicant is not under certain court orders, such as those involving mental disabilities, personal protection orders, legal incapacitation, or bond conditions that would prohibit an individual from possessing or obtaining a concealed weapons permit. The applicant does not have a pending felony charge or has been ever convicted of a felony or certain misdemeanors within a specified time period. The applicant has not been involuntarily committed due to a mental illness, adjudged insane, guilty but mentally ill, or pled in an insanity plea in a criminal case. The applicant does not have a diagnosed mental illness at the time of the application, and the applicant has not been dishonorably discharged from the U.S. military. And again, to get a complete copy of this list, please go to the website on the screen and make sure that you meet all of the criteria listed.
All right, that was a lot of information, so make sure you go onto that website. We are going to take our last break. Before we do so, I would like to direct you to our blog at localvoice.oriontv.org, where you can get this show along with links to the websites that we have mentioned. Also, other gun safety websites that we will be talking about throughout the show.
Residents of the Orion area are encouraged to safely dispose of toxic chemicals by attending one of several No-Haz events scheduled throughout the year. Orion Township will host an event on Saturday, September 20th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Friendship Park and is free to residents. Drop off computers and electronics, paint, pesticides, cleaners, and batteries. A team of trained volunteers and professionals will be on hand to collect, sort, and package the items for proper disposal or recycling. For more information, visit nohaz.com or call 248-858-5656.
Welcome back. We are here with Police Chief Narsh from Lake Orion Police Department. With recent Gallup reports saying that 60% of Americans own guns for personal safety, I'd like to make sure that people know a little bit more about how to properly handle guns.
One of the most important things is that if you've not had professional or formal training from someone on how to handle a firearm, that's one of the first things we encourage folks to do. Is if you're going to have a gun in the home, get some professional help on training. You can Google your area and ask for the classes that provide the training for concealed weapons. It's the same type of training that will provide the safety and also marksmanship skills that you're going to need. So first off, we encourage everybody to get that training and get a very well-versed knowledge of the gun that you're going to have in your home. And other than that, there's some very basic and simple firearm safety rules. We want to make sure that everyone understands simple firearm safety because in a way what we like to tell folks is that having a firearm in a home is like an insurance policy. Almost everyone has insurance, but nobody really wants to use it. And it's the same way with a firearm. It is a very powerful instrument in and of itself, but it's going to need to be touched. And if you don't know, then you consider every firearm always to be loaded. So if you don't know, such as this gun lying here today, I don't know, I'm going to assume that it's loaded. So we're going to need to know how to make that weapon safe if I'm going to handle it or pass that gun to you. Another very simple and obvious firearm safety rule is never point a firearm at anything you don't intend to shoot. We talk about what's called the laser rule. At the end of the muzzle, or at the end of the barrel, if there were a laser beam coming out of that, and if you were to pass that by a body part, it would cut that body part off. That's part of the instruction we even provide to law enforcement is never allow the muzzle or the barrel, the end of the firearm, to pass by anything that if that gun went off, you don't want to lose. I want to keep all my fingers, hands, toes. So the idea is the muzzle, the barrel, the end of the firearm always stays away from humans and body parts. Another thing is that we always keep our finger away from the trigger. There is no reason to have your finger anywhere near the trigger until the point that we're ready to shoot the firearm. If the firearm has a safety, we want to make sure that that safety is engaged and on until the actual point where we're going to discharge the firearm. But for the purpose of today, We have a gun safety lock, which is very common, very typical. There are a lot of different locks available. There are gun cases available. There are lock boxes and safes that people will have in their homes to keep a gun safe yet ready. It's kind of a paradox in that we have firearms in our home for our safety, but at the same time we want our home safe. So we want to keep the firearm safe and away from anyone who could get it that isn't trained in its use, such as children or really anyone. And at the same time have it accessible in the event you need it. So these locks are good. There are safes on the market today that have combinations that don't require keys. There are even some biometric safes that will recognize your fingerprints or a certain touch of the fingers to allow the box to open. And again, a Google search or check with a local firearms training company or a store can provide that information.
Okay, now when storing a gun, do you keep the bullets in the gun or do you keep the bullets separate from where you keep the gun?
That's going to be a personal decision. If the firearm is for home defense, the firearm needs to be available and quickly available to defend yourself. So obviously in that case you're going to want to keep that loaded gun or that gun with ammunition close by in a safe, secure place in the home, inaccessible for children or others that are not trained in its use. But at the same time, remember, if the function of the firearm is personal safety, then it has to be quickly accessible. And that's what these types of devices do. Now, first off, from a gun safety standpoint, if I don't know anything about this gun, the two things we're going to do is assume it's loaded, and we're going to keep the muzzle or the end of this gun away from anybody or anything that we don't want to lose. So I'm going to pick the firearm up carefully, and I'm going to keep my finger away from the trigger and keep the muzzle pointed away from me and others. I'm going to eject the magazine and make sure that there's no ammunition in that. In this case, there's not, so I'm going to set that aside. And I'm going to open the action or pull back the slide and lock it back to ensure that there's not a round or a bullet chambered inside the weapon. To do that, I'm going to pull it back, and at the same time, there is also a button that will allow me to lock it open. And lock that back. Now I can look inside and see and make sure that the barrel is empty and that there is not a bullet chambered in this firearm. This is now considered a safe firearm in that the magazine has been ejected, there is no ammunition in the magazine, it's away from the firearm, it's locked back, and there are no bullets inside the chamber. So at this point, I'm confident that this is a safe firearm, and if I were to pass it to you or pass a gun to another person, my duty as the possessor of the gun at this moment is to make it in a safe condition like this, and then I would pass it to you in a manner that it isn't pointed at you, and usually with the grip first. And that's the safe way, and I would ask you then to check and make sure that you're confident that the firearm is unloaded.
Okay, I'm confident that's unloaded.
Perfect. Now we know we have a safe gun. In applying a gun lock, and this is a typical gun lock that you're going to find at almost any store. This is a key type lock, but keep in mind you can find these types of locks, the loop or the cable lock as they call them, with a combination on them as well. That allows for the homeowner to have quick access to the unlocking the firearm without having to locate a key, and at the same time make it safe for children. These types of locks usually have a plastic coating on the cable to protect the firearm, so you're not going to hurt your gun by using these. And by the fact that it's a cable, it's long and it's usually kind of universal in that it will fit or adapt to any firearm. In this case, we have a semi-automatic, so what we would do is unlock the cable, and you simply take one end of the cable and insert it through the magazine well and out through the top of the firearm. Once you relock the cable, this gun is unable to be fired. It's in a safe condition. The cables can be put through the barrel of the gun out the ejection port, but it's going to be a lot harder to both insert the cable and remove the cable. The simplest method is to go through the magazine well, out the top of the firearm, and then relock the cable. If you had a revolver, this type of lock, by opening the cylinder, allows you to put this through the frame and relock it, and the cylinder could not be closed. It even works with rifles if they have an action or a magazine well. They can go through the magazine well and out the breech or the ejection port of the firearm at the same time as a semi-automatic pistol. So it's a very universal lock that can be used on any type of firearm.
Now, is there a right or wrong lock to get, or does it not matter as long as it gets the job done?
Well, the correct lock is any lock that safely secures the firearm and is strong enough to withstand tampering. An improper lock would be one that doesn't allow you, the home or the firearm owner, to have access to that gun to quickly to make that gun functional to provide protection for you and your family. So really, those are the simple and basic rules. I wouldn't advise using any locking system that isn't designed or made for firearms. I would recommend that you go to a store or a dealer that sells this type of safety equipment, let them know what type of firearm you have and get their input and guidance on what type of lock would be best.
Okay, now I know that we just went over gun safety and gun locks. Is there anywhere people can pick up a gun lock, or do you know any good places that are giving them away?
Well, it just so happens that starting tomorrow at the Lake Orion Police Department, located at 37 East Flint in Lake Orion, Michigan, we have a supply of 50 of a similar gun lock through the Child Safe program. And we're going to be giving those locks away free, so to the first 50 people that come to the Lake Orion Police Department, we're going to have these Child Safe locks available at no charge. So we encourage, stop in, pick one up. We want you to exercise your rights, but be safe.
Now, what days can residents come and pick up gun locks?
Any day, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The office is open for the purpose of handing out the gun locks.
Okay. Now, I personally am a concealed weapons holder. What are some things that I need to instruct an officer if I was to get pulled over for speeding?
Well, for any police contact, not just speeding. So if any time an officer, you're the subject of a contact with a police officer where they're going to be questioning you or as a result of a traffic stop, Michigan law requires that you immediately disclose that you are a licensed pistol holder if you are in possession of the firearm. I recommend to everyone, because it's on your license, your driver's license, that you have that license, that whether you have the weapon with you or not, that you tell the officer that you are a licensed holder and that you have your weapon. And usually just at the time they walk up, we're going to appreciate that, and it's going to make for a safe and successful stop.
Again, Police Chief, for stopping in to talk to us about firearm safety. For more information and to get a link to this show and other safety websites, please feel free to log on to our blog at localvoice.oriontv.org.